It's The Journey with drug and alcohol attorney Mark G. Astor.
All right, everybody, welcome again to another edition of the Journey Live. Super excited to have a special guest, Thatcher Shivley. Welcome, Thatcher.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me, Mark. It's cool. I've been watching like the progression of you doing these, and you're doing a really good thing, man. It's really cool.
Yeah, we're having fun with these, and I love doing them with people that that we work with and have worked with and have become not just colleagues, but friends.
Sure. Yeah, we have about a bi-monthly kind of run-in that I always enjoy.
Yeah, well, you know what it was? I know that we had talked about you coming on the show, and then, we bumped into each other at Inner Circle Network, and I was like,
Perfect.
It's perfect. It's weird because we didn't have any plan for this particular week, and then I said, I know I'm going to I'll go to Inner Circle.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to bump into somebody, and I'll be like...
That was your mentality going in?
I said, I'm going to bump into somebody, and then I saw you there, and I'm like...
Had to be.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Time to get
You
that
know what
on.
the word is for that?
What's the word?
Serendipitous.
Is that what it is?
I think that's it.
I'm not sure I could even spell that. They didn't teach me how to spell that in law school.
Definitely can't spell it. But I'd like to say, because I said this earlier before the cameras rolled, but it's worth saying on here. I obviously have a very different name, Thatcher Shivley, right? So the way you say my name is how I think it should sound in my mind. So say it again for everyone, just really clear.
Thatcher Shivley.
You said it a little too formal then.
Well, I was here. You know what it was? It's with a name like that. You probably should run for political office. It's almost presidential.
I've heard that. It's a stately name, is what.
That's what it is. It's a stately name.
You know what my middle name is?
Go ahead. What's your
Thatcher William Shivley.
I think you might have to run for president with a name like that.
Too late for that, my friend.
Well, I don't know.
Which we'll probably get into as to reasons why in a little bit.
I love it. I love it.
It's you know what? Growing up, I never had a problem with having a different name. I always actually enjoyed it. And funny enough, I never once, like you would think with a name like that, middle school or elementary school would be torture, and I never once got picked on for it. I never once. And I always really grew to like and really admire my own name, which is kind of odd to say out loud, but I just did. So
okay, very cool.
Yeah.
So you work for Feinberg Consulting, and I want to talk about that because they have a very unique case management
service, really.
Yeah, intervention type service. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about you because I wanted to get you on the show because everybody has a story, and I think it's important for you to understand what your journey was because we all have a different journey.
Yeah.
So tell us about yourself. Where'd you grow up?
So I'm a Florida boy, born and raised. I've been here my whole life. Don't hold that against me, anybody. And growing up down here, I didn't realize how weird Florida was until I left for the first time, and then I came back. I was like, everyone here is crazy, but it's a good kind of crazy. So, yeah, I've been here my whole life, and my parents, they split up from a very early age. I have no memory or recollect of them ever being together in under one roof as a family unit, but they loved me. And I know what love is because of my father, and I know what love is because of my mom. They did the best they could, and they did a good job. It was tough growing up. It was a bit of a chaotic environment at times. My mom had some issues and some personal problems, and that made things, uncertain, And I think as a result, I kind of really felt separate. I never really felt different, but I did feel separate from a lot of things going on. And then I really just kind of dove into self quite a bit, actually, and just kind of put on blinders to the world, really, and just kind of saw the world as something that I had to navigate by myself. And by the way, I don't think that's really true. I've got a great sister and a brother and my mom at times even, and my father, of course, who was a great father. But I created it. I guess that's what kids do, right? You experience the world. Right, and then
through your own set of lenses, right?
Yeah, and then you make up a story about that through your own filter, and then you run with that story as if it's the truth, and you have your own narrative about how life is. So I definitely had a narrative where I was, if I wanted something, I needed to get it. If I broke it, I needed to fix it, and that served me in a lot of ways. And in certain ways later on, it didn't. But I think my first real love, my parents were both musicians. I loved music. I still love music to this day. It's really one of the only things that ever really made sense to me. It just immediately makes sense. I can almost see it.
So tell us about that, because I know you shared, when we were chatting yesterday about what that was all about. My dad's a drummer. My mom was a singer, and I don't have memories of it, but I'm told that I was on tour with them for a while. My dad was a pretty successful musician, played in some pretty well-known bands, and he ended up stopping, because he had to raise a couple of kids, and But I got the bug pretty early on, and he was a drummer, and I became a drummer, and that was like.
Did you play in any bands?
Oh yeah.
You did?
Yeah. I went to college for it and everything.
You played drums in college?
Oh yeah.
Where?
I got a music scholarship. University of South Florida. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So were you in like the marching band or like?
You know what? They didn't have a marching band because they didn't have a football team then. But I played in the jazz band. I played in the symphony. I did all that stuff. I was classically trained percussionist and a jazz drummer. That's what I got a scholarship there for.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool.
So how long does it take? I mean, tell us about. How do you become classically trained as a percussionist and drummer?
Yeah, that's a good question. You go to school and you study. You don't have to necessarily go to school, but there's a lot of technique that one needs to learn. Like there's a lot going on. Like people don't really understand probably the intricacies of the law, right? Same thing if you see a symphony playing and you see the percussionists, like when they're hitting cymbals or hitting the timpani. Like there's a
especially comes to I mean I know when I was at college, I mean the guys that were in the the college bands.
Yeah.
You just think the guy gets up there and just still banging away on the drums.
There's hours and hours of practice and technique and skill, and it's a craft, man. I mean, even if for a whole symphony, if one guy does a crash cymbal and that's the only one, like there's a lot of technique and finesse and skill and all that. So that's what I studied for my first couple of years of college. Yeah.
Wow. So you got to basically go to college on a scholarship. And pursue what was really your passion.
Yeah, I loved it, man. It was I'd found like what I loved and what I was here to do. Yeah.
Okay. So I know that yours, like a lot of, I guess, is sort of a journey of substance use and recovery. So let's talk a little bit about that. When did that become an issue for you?
Yeah. So I was doing well in music school, and I thought I found what I loved and what I was good at and what I was going to pursue. I was really committed to it. And then around my second year, I discovered. Alcohol. I'd never really big into that because I saw what was going on around me and always kind of said to myself, that's never going to be me, And
do you think some of that stuff is just a sort of, if you're a musician, it's sort of almost part and parcel of the story? I mean,
yes, obviously, I think it is. But in my domain, in music school, like studying classical and jazz, like it wasn't a really like prominent thing.
Right, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah, well, wine, music, and song, right? Same thing. That's been going on for 100 years. But I fell into a different group. There's some guys that live next door to me that were partying and looked like they're having a good time. And here I am, 20 years old in college and like going to bed by 9 p.m. because I had a 6 a.m. class. And people don't realize in music school you have to practice hours and hours a day. It's your life. So, I saw them having fun, and then one day I just kind of went over there, and they quickly like dragged me in, and I quickly realized why they were having so much fun. And it was a slow progression for me. And the sad news is, and I've come to peace with it, but I eventually handed back the music scholarship. It was getting in the way of this new commitment that I had and that I found. There's an old saying, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but that normal people trade their behaviors so they can meet their goals, but someone with substance use, will
trade their
goals to meet their behaviors, and that's what I did. The thing that I had loved so much, that I had sacrificed so much for, just kind of fell down on the totem pole rather rapidly for me. Once you cross this invisible line from like recreation, and this is what happened to me in college, right? At first it was just the weekends and a little bit of fun, and then it becomes absolute full-on chronic dependence. Like there's this invisible line. You don't know when it's happening necessarily. It's not on a Friday night. It's a progression, and when you cross this line, you're in full-on soul-depriving dependence. And at that point, your brain and your body has developed a relationship with these substances, right? These chemicals that makes it virtually impossible to stop on your own. It's hard. And how could a normal person understand?
So, I mean, you said that at one point, especially with the music, that's consuming. Did you feel like you sort of swapped the consumption of music for consumption of the party life?
I don't know if I ever really thought of that, but good job. Yeah, absolutely. Because I can remember this, like the first couple of times hanging out with him. I always like to say this, but I felt like I could breathe. Because I got some relief from the stuff I was doing with them, from the chemicals I was doing. It gave me freedom and relief from me.
Do you think you were just sort of fried from the whole music thing?
I think so.
Maybe it was just.
I think because I had worked really hard for a really long time, and when I got to experience a little bit of relief, I had some freedom, and I can remember making this decision, like I'm gonna commit to this. I'm gonna see this through. I can kind of remember like saying that to myself, and. I didn't cross the line then. It was still experimental and dabbling, but the
this is chronic, man. It's a disease for a few different reasons. It's chronic. It'll always be in you, right? You always have this allergy, if you will. I think we talked about that yesterday. Yeah. It's primary. It exists first, right? I'm not I don't use because I'm depressed. I'm depressed because I use, right? It's progressive. Over time, it gets worse. It never gets better. And
right, and that's one of the conversations I have with the parents. I mean, they see that it gets worse, and so sometimes sort of frustrating for me is I say to myself, okay, because sometimes they'll say, listen, they'll tell you we're just not ready to do this, and you say to yourself, well, at what point? I mean, how much worse do you want to wait till it gets before you do something? And sometimes parents, if they can't, for lack of a better, pull the trigger, 6 months might go by and they call me up and say, okay, we got to do, I always say I'm the last port of call, so that maybe they're just not ready to maybe they're going to try something a little different beforehand, and and there's always that hope that their loved one will sort of snap out of it and come to their senses.
It's a phase.
It's a phase, right?
And listen, for some people, I had experiences with friends and people that I knew that for them it was a phase, and for other people it's not. And if there's not an interruption, which is something that you do in your service, something that me and my company, Feinberg Consulting, that we do, if there's not an interruption to that, man, I mean, we've got 3 options out there. We've got jails, we've got institutions, and we've got death.
Right. That's what I tell families. Yeah. But
but it doesn't have to be that. That's the thing. There's another option.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get the family, as you know. It's hard to get the individual. They can't see themselves clearly. Like when you're in the grips of an addiction.
That's why they call it a family disease, because
you can't see
they can't see the forest for the trees.
They cannot, man. You can't adequately appraise your situation, the consequences, what you're going through. You very quite literally cannot see yourself clearly. So how can you make any sound, rational, logical, healthy choices from that place? It's only in hindsight, like looking back at like the years that prior to me getting sober, I can obviously see how dangerous and insane my behavior was. But at the time, I was having a good time, man. This is the consequences, just dues I gotta pay. We'll figure it out.
So do you think the drugs changed since your time in college? I know when I grew up and I was 18, 19, I had friends who smoked weed, and we never really looked at it as. Yeah. I never smoked, but I never really looked at it as that crazy, to be honest with you. And now they're like, well, it's the gateway drug, and we get calls from parents whose kids are smoking a lot of weed, and they all seem to have. There's a certain sort of common thread, right? There's delusions and paranoia, and then they start to step up and do other things.
I think it's dangerous. I think that the marijuana specifically and the THC content, and it's just a different thing than it was years ago. And when you start smoking this very potent thing very early, it literally stunts the development of your brain. And I'm not an expert by any means, but and I'm paraphrasing all of this, but we've both probably seen, especially in my line of work, individuals who have psychosis and certain mental disorders that, it's psychoactive. It really is. It's a major psychedelic. And if you start doing that at a very early age, how can it not inhibit and stunt certain developments, inside? So I think it's different. I think it's dangerous. I really do. Yeah.
So what was wrong? So how long did you end up staying in college?
I stayed in college. That's a good story.
I told you yesterday we'd find things to talk about.
Mark, I tell you what, man, I was in college. It got to the point where my father was asking if I was getting a medical degree. Let's just put it this way. I was in.
Were you on like the 8 or 9 year program?
I was in there for a while. I eventually ended up, getting kicked out of my University of South Florida, and then. I had to experience some consequences, and I actually became a DJ in the electronic music scene down here in Florida, and I had an amazing time on one hand, and on the other hand, it was very dangerous. But I did have a good time, but my addiction was really getting worse doing that, and I started experiencing consequences, and they started racking up a lot more rapidly and with a lot closer frequency. And
so, can you share any of those with us?
Yeah. So I overdosed and ended up in the hospital. And there's the tangibles, there's the real material consequences, but beyond all of that, it's like I lost the trust of people that loved me. I lost self-respect. All the lies I told, the dreams I sacrificed, the hope that was like all of that stuff, my freedom. Like, I got arrested, and all of that stuff just started racking up. But at the time, the weird, baffling thing about addiction and alcoholism was I couldn't attribute that stuff to my disease. Like I said earlier, that was just dues I had to pay. I wasn't able to connect the dots and see that this is happening as a result of this until one time, and we talked about this, briefly yesterday, I had a lawyer. I had to hire a lawyer for my case, and he suggested treatment. And it wasn't my idea. I didn't want to do it, but he made it so I didn't really have a lot of options. And thank God. So that shows the importance of having like services like you to come in and kind of like handle that stuff. So I went to treatment. He arranged it, and it was only then that I started to realize, once the dust settled and I got a clear head, right, and I got a couple meals in me, that I was able to see that, like, wow, like, you're not a victim of circumstance here. Like, I became accountable in there. I could see how all the choices that I made, I could see myself clearly.
How long did it take for sort of the ball to drop, as it were?
The ball to drop. And me end up there in treatment?
What I mean is that when you got in treatment, at some point you said,
gotcha.
You got a little clarity. You said,
man.
My life's going the wrong direction, and now I know why.
Yeah. Not too long, a couple weeks. And let's be honest, there was a faint whisper of that going in, because I wasn't completely delusional. So I was it was clouded with victimology and excuses, right? But once I was there and around other people and hearing different people share, and I got to see, before I was just by myself and drinking and using, but when I got to see other people, I mean, that's how it is, like interacting with humans, right? We see ourselves through other people. So, and that's the value of going into treatment and being around people, in the similar situation. You learn about yourself by witnessing others. So I think that's what really happened. And it happened within the first couple of weeks. And then once I was there and that kind of snapped, I actually shifted to a place of being grateful that I was there. That's what I tell people all the time. We deal with people who are in treatment. Like, it's a gift to be able to do nothing but work on yourself for 30, 60, 90, 120 days. Like, how many people right now probably around the country, around the world, would give anything to be able to take time out of their life to go do nothing but work on themselves? I mean, it's a gift.
Yep. No, it really is. So how long did you end up staying in treatment for?
63 days.
Okay.
And it was a state-run facility, so they don't keep you long.
Yeah,
it's not a big budget.
Yeah, that's true too. So how long you been clean now? In recovery?
In September, it'll be 14 years. Sober.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing, man.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's great.
So I know you work for $5. So let's talk about that the shift. I mean, after you got done with treatment, did you go back to college? What did you do with yourself?
Yeah, once I got out of treatment, I forget when, but once I was sober for a little bit, I decided to go back to school and finish my pursuits. I went to an online school and got my degree.
Any more music, or you're done with that?
Yeah, I still to this day DJ. I still have the equipment. So I did that a little bit my first few years. I still have a drum set up. I don't play it a ton, but for all intents and purposes, I didn't return to that with any full commitment. I mainly worked and went back to school and did all that, and really became interested in like life. I started to travel a little bit, started to build friendships. I started to get really into exercise, and I really created a strong foundation of recovery. I went to a lot of meetings. I joined a fellowship that I just dove in head first and took a lot of action in, and I still do to this day. I think it's very important for me to have my own personal recovery and practice around that.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of our sort of mutual friends, people who work in the industry, they're people in recovery, and some of them 5, 10, maybe 15 years in recovery, and yet they're still going to meetings once, twice. They're still working the program. Which was interesting to me, but that's. I think the more time I spend working, and we're now year 4 doing what we do. It's like the more I learn about sort of the mechanics of this thing, and I tell the families, look, I'll get your loved one into treatment.
Sure.
They'll probably almost certainly get clean.
Yeah.
But if they're going to do 90 days or 6 months, and then they're going to go back to their old lifestyle, their loser friends, whatever it was that the circumstances which had them in that environment where they were going to not be able to get into recovery, then honestly, if they're not going to continue to work the program, I think you're going to be disappointed with the results.
It's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, the recovery begins the day you leave. Treatment's great. You learn a lot about yourself. It's an education. For me, in treatment, I always like to say this: a window opened up, like I said earlier, where I could see myself clearly. I saw who and what I was, that I couldn't drink or do drugs safely, and I couldn't stop or stay stopped on my own. But that in of itself isn't really a full-on solution. It's just kind of information. It's an opening. It's a discovery of facts. So I learned that in treatment and super grateful, right? But the solution for me really started the day that they, told me to leave. And I hopped on a train and came to Delray Beach and joined a fellowship and started seeking and creating relationships and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's the power of like what Feinberg Consulting does as a case management company. Like we really provide aftercare for individuals. It's really not even aftercare. It's long-term maintenance, really.
So let's talk about that. How did you? So I know you told us you finished up your degree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how did you end up working sort of in our industry?
So I had met Pam Feinberg and Steve Feldman, the owners of Feinberg Consulting. We did a training together, a program. It's called Gratitude Training, a personal development program. And we did that together, and I got to know them, become friendly with them. And they had asked me to do some contract coaching for them. One of the service lines that we have that is under the umbrella of Feinberg Consulting is our addiction and mental health service line. We do case management, assessments, interventions, family coaching, treatment placement, and recommendation, and recovery coaching as well. So they hired me to do some coaching for their male clients down here in Florida, because we have a staff here in Florida, and we also have a staff in our corporate headquarters is in Michigan. So that was around 2015 or 16. They asked me to come aboard and do some coaching, and that just led to more involvement with them. They liked the work that we were able to do and what we were able to create together. So they hired me to do some business development and outreach stuff and continue to coach. And I got my certification while I was with them those first few months. And I sit in with them on interventions, and it's been great, man. We really love what we do, and we really feel like we're making a difference, and we're proud. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So how long have you been with Feinberg?
I've been with Feinberg now off and on since around 2015. I'm bad with dates with that. I should probably look at that. Yeah. Maybe it's 2016. Don't quote me on 15. Yeah.
So I know you said they're based in Michigan.
Yeah.
So how do families end up finding them?
It's usually word of mouth, to be quite honest with you. But, especially up in Michigan, we've got a really great community presence in the West Bloomfield area and the Michigan area. We've been doing case management for 23 years for individuals who have catastrophic injuries like traumatic brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, amputees. So we're a well-known established company, and we've been doing this particular service line, the addiction and mental health, for the past 8-9 years. So a lot of times families find us from word of mouth, really. And down here we work with attorneys like yourself, and we work with treatment centers and therapists, who make referrals to us for individuals who are in need of things like case management. It's really like she was really good, and Pam was able to take the model that she had for case management for catastrophic individuals and kind of duplicate that model and apply it to individuals with mental health and substance use.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been really good.
What caused the shift for her between what they were doing before, which was the catastrophic injury type things, and then the shift to substance use and mental health?
She had a client actually in catastrophic that needed to find some treatment. They had developed a problem with their pain medication, and she didn't know anything about the treatment space, and she ended up finding a treatment center down here and placing him in here, and then was making visits down here to check on him, and then really realized that there was a real need, because I can only imagine she probably wondered, well, what happens when he leaves,
right?
And what if he stays down here? He needs support. So I think out of that, her model was really born, and it's been like 8-9 years. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of that stuff, because talk a little bit about the case management, what that's all about, because a lot of the time it's just sort of the client and me.
Yeah.
But there have been times where I've worked with interventionists and case managers, and I'll tell you, it really makes a difference. It makes a difference to me.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference
to you, like in terms of what you're doing.
Well, yeah, because it's such a different area of. I always feel like I'm more of a therapist clinician first and a lawyer second,
what we do is very similar actually, but go ahead.
And so and a lot of the time when the parents call me, right, they're very much in crisis, right? Yeah. They're emotional, they're spent financially, sure, physically, and emotionally. Yeah. They're exhausted, and so they come to us. So a lot of the time, clients, for lack of a better term, sometimes we're talking the client, not the child, yeah, but the client off the ledge, right? Yeah, and yeah. So sometimes they'll initiate it, and then they'll have what I call buyer's remorse, right? They'll say, I had a mom very recently. Am I doing the right thing? Yeah. My kid's gonna hate me. Yeah. And so I think through experience, I share, and I tell the parents, look, I'm not a clinician, but let me just share some experiences I've had with some of the other families that we've helped.
Sure.
So they understand that what they're going through is, that's sort of almost part of the whole cycle of emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of exactly.
Yeah, totally.
It's part of the emotional process they're experiencing. They're not alone.
Yes.
But when I have like an interventionist or a case manager that is there to sort of handle that part,
yeah,
it makes my job a whole lot easier because I can just focus on what I need to do,
yes.
which is to take care of the legal work.
Yes.
And
get the client to a safe place
and do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I found that just even from my own sort of emotional state, it's a lot less taxing and exhausting.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm grateful for what you do.
No, yeah,
but maybe share a little bit about how it all works.
Yeah. So as a case management company, we do two things, right? We do patient advocacy and a coordination of services, right? So our clients are assigned their own personal case manager who comes up with a treatment plan, does an assessment, and then supports with the follow through of that treatment plan. And then they also get their own personal coach, recovery coach or sober coach. And the coach is meeting with them, maybe once a week, twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and is really holding them accountable to creating things in their life. The case manager or another person will be working with the family the whole time as well, helping the family in situations like you described. Keep agreements, keep boundaries, and keep rooted in the family's vision and what they really want to come, have. Help navigate the obstacles that come up along the way. Because everyone's a yes at first, and then when you start to move a couple feet, like whoa, I didn't mean today. Like I said, I wanted help, not today. So that's really something we can do in supporting services like yourself. So you can focus on the client. We can come in and really support the family and help them keep their agreements and their boundaries. So we can get it's all about getting the client the help that they need and getting them safe. That's really what it's about.
Right. And sometimes families will come to us. And they'll say, well, where should I send my son or my daughter? And we work with a very sort of select group of treatment centers down here.
Yeah.
But for us, we're sort of saying, okay, is it a primary substance use case or is it a primary mental health? If it's mental health, Order's going to deal with it. If it's more substance abuse, I'll do the Marchman Act.
Yeah.
And if there's a criminal case pending, which occasionally happens, our colleague Lewis will handle it. So, so I think having what you guys do, able to sort of do that assessment and really decide where's the right place for this person.
That's a good point.
Because we're really, our knowledge is, even though our clients are 99.9% of them are out of state, their children are here, and sometimes it just may not be a good fit here. And sometimes what will happen is eventually the child will go to another state.
Yeah.
So you obviously have a much sort of broader spectrum of vision, as it were, when it comes to where to send somebody.
Yeah, I think that's part of the value of what we bring to the table, right, is treatment placement and recommendation. And based on the relationships that we have in Florida and around the country, we can really find the right place for the client. Because not only do you have to worry about placing someone in today's landscape, placing someone in a place that's unethical and doesn't do good clinical work at all. Like I think there's a real danger in misplacing someone, right? And what I mean by that is placing someone in a facility that's not going to meet their needs. Like if they have strong mental health, and secondary substance use, they should go to a place that's going to treat that.
Right.
Or if they have a lot of trauma, then they maybe need to go to a trauma place. So, treatment recommendation and placement based on that assessment that we do, it's so important. It really is. And I think that's one of the things we really do well is we can come in, we can do a full assessment, and then based on what we see, find the right place for them that's going to really help them.
Right. And, sometimes, once in a blue moon, we'll get a case and Audra and I'll be like, where do we send this person, And that's, and then it becomes a matter of us reaching out to, folks like you and say, hey, listen, Thatcher, these are the facts. What do you think? Where would you send this? Is there anywhere in Florida where we could, that it's a good fit? And if it's not,
and that's something
we'll tell the client.
That's something that we do with almost every case, because we can come in at the beginning of the continuum, kind of like you do, right? Or we can come in at the end of the continuum. When we come in at the beginning of the process, we're doing the intervention. We're working with the family, and then based on what's going on with the client, we're finding the appropriate place for them clinically, and then we stay with them and case manage them. Ideally, they'll get a coach, they'll get their own case manager, the family will get their own coach too. So that's at the very beginning and staying with them. Or we come in at I don't want to say the end, but more towards the middle. If they're in treatment and they're about to be discharged, and the treatment center for whatever reason or their therapist feels like they need some aftercare or maintenance and more services, once they're discharged, we come aboard, or actually right before they're discharged, we come aboard, do our own assessment, and then assign them a case manager. So when they transition out and they are discharged, they have a whole team of support behind them. And that's the thing, man. And that's the difference. Like that's,
the second time around for me getting sober, like I had a team of support around me. The first time when I relapsed, I didn't. I tried to do it all on my own and just use my willpower, and it didn't work. So, that's the power of case management, is you have your own personal team that's working with you and for you, and it's great.
Yeah, I think having that support system is huge.
It's huge, man.
Oh my God. I mean, and I've just sort of seen that from experience, that the individuals who have, that support system, the sponsor, the meetings, but just an environment that supports recovery. I mean, it's
everything.
It's massive.
It makes it, and especially in today's climate, and we're seeing a lot of younger people who again have mental health situations going on as well as substance use. So that requires a lot of coordination. It requires it's complex. It requires a lot of care and thought and deliberate action.
So where do you see our industry going? Because I got to tell you, I don't see my phone stopping ringing anytime soon.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to say, but
I know. I was looking at the statistics the other day, and it's scary, man. It really is. I think that we were talking about this briefly on the phone yesterday. I think, it's a shame personally. Like, I want to give a shout out to Florida. Like, we've got great treatment centers down here. We have who are doing great clinical work. We really do, and it's a shame that there's been some places that have what's the word I'm looking for? Smudged that a little bit, because there are a lot of really good places doing a lot of good work. And I actually think this now is the time, especially what's going on across the nation with this, epidemic. It's really a civil war, what's going on. Like, we're experiencing a civil war, essentially, I think now is a great time for the great players to come in and, do strong clinical work. So I'm hopeful. I really am. I think, Florida's done a good job of cracking down. We're leading the way in that. And I think out of that, the cream's going to rise to the top, and there'll be more cream.
So other than Florida, where else? I mean, because occasionally we hear about a treatment center that might be in, say, the Carolinas or Tennessee, but we get calls from places like Indiana, and they'll say, they'll tell me there's just literally no treatment options up in that part of the world, and it seems like it's either Florida, Texas, or California for the most part.
For the most part, that's been my experience too, and I don't know know that much about that. Like, our team is really good. Kristen Byrne who's our vice president of clinical services, and Pam Feinberg and Steve Feldman. They really have their finger on the pulse in terms of relationships around the country and who's doing really good work. Again, that's part of what we do. I'm not as educated and informed, but those seem to be like some of the big three. Yeah. And again, like I said, Florida, we're doing such good work, and it really hurts to hear that, people don't want to come down here. And on one hand, I understand the hesitation.
Well, for a long time, I mean, it was, they talked about the Florida Shuffle and all this other stuff. I mean, but from what I've seen, the bad treatment centers have gone out of business because they were cheating. Yeah. And if they haven't gone out of business, they probably, their owners have been arrested. So, and they're still arresting people. So, to me, what's left here is like a good,
sure, ethical, core
group of treatment centers. So I still think you have great options down here.
Me too. And aside, because there's treatment and then there's recovery. They're two distinct things, right? The recovery down here, I'll go ahead and go on record as saying, is phenomenal. Like, the people that I run with and that I hang out with and that I'm close with, like, I can't tell you the amount of miracles that I've seen and I'm still seeing on a daily basis. So, the recovery down here is phenomenal. And I've seen it firsthand. I've had it happen in my own life, and I've also seen it with my own eyes. So, I definitely wanted to say that.
Yeah, and I know that you told me yesterday that you're a sponsor too, right? So you talk the talk, but you walk the walk too, right? You're helping some people stay in recovery.
I am. Again, like I said at the beginning, it's part of my practice, and it's something that I love, that I'm passionate about, and I feel I don't want to say a sense of duty, but because I don't see it as a duty or an obligation, I see it as a gift and an opportunity to be able to give back. And it doesn't just help keep me sober. It's given my life a meaning and a purpose. Just like, listen.
I know how you feel.
Yeah, listen. For me, when I was using drugs and alcohol, gave my life meaning and purpose. Like I had a spiritual relationship with it. So I needed something to replace that. And that's what having principles and living a path and of recovery has done. It's replaced that and given my life meaning and purpose. So I'm able to have that not just in the work I do, but also in my own personal recovery.
Yeah, how many people are you sponsoring right now?
Quite a bit, probably 6.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
I'm proud. I'm happy to do it.
I love it.
I'm really grateful, man.
So for the folks who are watching the show, tell them how they can get a hold of you. How do they find out more about what you do and Feinberg?
Yeah. So you can go to our website, feinbergconsulting.com. We've got a blog up there. Our marketing team does a really good job of creating some cool content. Me and some of the staff there, we all collaborate and write some really cool articles on recovery and our different service lines. So you can definitely find us there. We're on Instagram as well. You can. I don't know if I can give them my email address. It's probably
absolutely
a little too long.
Unless
okay.
It's okay. Do your thing.
I'll do it.
I'm going to give them my information too. So if they can't find you, they'll find me.
And then you can refer it. Yeah,
exactly.
So my email address is tshivley at feinbergconsulting.com.
So it's Shivley at feinbergconsulting.com.
It's a mouthful.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's a big one. And our website as well.
I'm going to give them my information. They need to get a hold of you. So folks, thanks for tuning in. By the way, while the show's going on, if you have any questions, post them. We'll do the best we can to answer them. And if you want information about what we do, or you just want to reach out to my good friend Thatcher here, you can find us on the web at drugandalcoholattorneys.com. We are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And you can email me, Mark at drugandalcoholattorneys.com, or just give us a call, 561-419-6095. And thanks for tuning in to another edition of The Journey Live.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for coming on, Thatcher.
Thank you.